Hello, Frugal Feminista community. My name, of course, is Kara Stephens. I'm founder of Frugal Feminista, and I am founder of the community, the Debt Free Society, which is committed to helping BIPOC women heal their relationship with debt, get out of debt, and build lives that they want. And I'm super excited to have Dr. Iris Grattan come to share her experience being part of the founding community of the Debt Free Society, to share her experience, share her wins, share her dreams, share her joys, and just really give us insight in what it looks like to invest in yourself, to have an idea of what you want from your life, in your life, and then being unapologetic about getting the support to make it come true. So thank you so much, Iris, Dr. Grattan, I should say, for coming. Really happy that you're here. And um, I introduced you, but who are you and how would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm really glad to be here. Um, you can call me Iris or Doc. Iris is fine. I am a doctor. I'm a naturopathic physician, and I that's a part of my life. But yeah, so I'm really a Black woman trying to make my dreams come true. However, that happens. One of them is becoming a doctor, something I always wanted to do. But in order to not just take care of myself, but to invest and take care of my community or be a part of the network of those who are caring for their community, I need to be financially strong so that my foundation doesn't interfere with my dreams. And
Mm.
so I say that's more, I'm sorry, that's more of who I am. Uh, and so, yeah, I'm here just learning and growing. So.
I love that. But I think yeah, you are learning, you're growing, and you're doing. And so let's kind of talk about being a part of the debt-free society, this cohort. How would you say your mindset has changed since joining and doing the work? And what would you say the work is?
So I was really intrigued by the statement debt-free society. And I feel like it is a point of view, a world point of view, not just an action or a series of actions that you take. And so I really wanted to think of myself as a woman who used money with wisdom and with power. And so I didn't feel that that was the case beforehand. I make good money. I wanted a six-figure job. I was able to secure one, but I still felt like, especially living in New York City, that I was poor and I still had a poverty mentality, I would say. And working with you and being a part of the society just helped me understand that that was some of the things that I was dealing with and some of what was keeping me stuck in like behaviors and thinking that I didn't really want to be in, but I didn't know how to. So one of the things that I would say that's changed my mindset is really awareness of where I am. The first thing that brought me into the Debt Free Society was the challenge. And we were talking about money for 5 days. And one of the things I learned about myself is that these emotional triggers were here and they were really manipulating how I use my money.
Mm.
And I didn't make those connections. I felt the emotional triggers and then I went and I took actions. And my main action is buying food because I love to cook. I love food. I love the experience. And, but I still felt like I was like, oh, well, I'm making good money. I don't really need to check myself on that. But when we were sitting down and we didn't specifically go through that, but on my off times, I would look at what I was spending money on and it really like hurt my heart. I was like, I can't believe I'm spending like $60 on a meal before I even pay bills. And that was like no big thing to me. It was just like, well, I always have money to pay my bills, but what else is there to life? Yes, I have this experience of eating. I have this experience of paying bills. I'm not likely to be homeless. That's okay. But isn't there anything else? And that's what I mean by having a poverty mentality is like just thinking of the minimum and not what else I can do with my money. Like I'm set, but am I really set? Because I'm frustrated that I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I haven't figured out the plan to do that. I haven't figured out the emotional triggers that are sabotaging those dreams. So all of that to me is a poverty mentality. But at this point, I feel very much more aware of my triggers. And even I still have those desires to eat sometimes and spend money on food. The bigger desire is that I don't want to go into my budget for the month and see that I spent $120 on food before I even put money towards savings or I bought myself something that was really important. Because the other big thing for me is education. But then if I'm putting money towards these great meals, I can't educate myself. And so I don't like that feeling. And that feeling is worse to me than the good feeling of eating these really nice meals and having a great experience at a restaurant.
Yeah, I
So I
love
would say my mind has really got changed, started to more awareness, and that empowers me.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just saying, just kind of double tapping and saying that I love that. And you were referencing the Stop the Emotional Spend challenge, where we did that deep dive into kind of thinking about what it is that we do with money. What is money? How does it show up when we're stressed? How does it show up when we're happy? And just making
Yeah.
the connection between those feelings being the antecedent feeling that triggers the response instead of having the pause between the feeling and then the behavior. And I think that's
Mm.
extremely powerful. And I think what you're also seeing too is that um, you prioritize what's important to you, right? Your values of education, of course, fine dining, but it's been kind of ranked, right?
Mhm.
That this is the trade-off for this isn't as good as that. So therefore I'm going to do this. And not to say you're never going to do the eating
Right.
out, but you're saying that I have to put it in the proper proportion. Things were out of proportion, is what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
And I love that for
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I remember one of our first sessions or first or second sessions, I was like, okay, friend, let's share our screen, right?
Yeah.
And so, so can you just tell me, like, throughout the whole process of like sharing your screen, meaning that we would go through your budget weekly, look at what we could eliminate, look at what was important, things that were non-negotiable, which I'm really, I respect you for. How much would you say, first, like, talk about that process, and how much would you say we were able to find in savings, which would carry on for, years, because if we found it was stuck in your budget doing that thing for the previous years, it will be now
Mhm.
being put towards saving or investing or doing something for years to come. So what would you say? How much would you say you saved or deleted in debt? Like, just kind of give us some of the numbers with as far as you're comfortable.
Okay, well, I'll answer the first question because sharing the screen was very vulnerable, and I am not that transparent. I've been following you for a number of years, but
Mhm.
uh, we don't rub shoulders on a regular basis. We
Right,
don't have that call you up on the phone
right,
kind of relationship.
right.
And so I felt very exposed, even though I felt like you were a safe person. I
Hmm.
didn't know you, right? So
I know you
I
like
was
that,
like,
right? Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So it was very, and my budget was looking good to me. And I was
Hmm.
thinking, oh, I'm doing a great job. I have this
Hmm.
Excel database. Everything is color coded. I mean, I felt really proud of myself.
Hmm.
And it's not that I felt shame afterwards, but I just realized again the awareness of how I was spending money just unintentionally without really forethought about how I want to use it and how it is powerful. Um, and so I got used to at some point being vulnerable with you and sharing other things that were related to the money, so, or the back end thoughts and emotions. And I really commend you for showing up without judgment. There were times when you questioned the things that I put money towards. And when I set boundaries, you really respected that. And then we moved on. And it just gave me time to come back and think about that later on. And I was willing to make some of those changes. So I appreciate that. As far as what I saved, I really wanted to save $1,000 a month towards housing. I want to buy a house at the end of this year, and I can say that at this moment I'm saving $997. And so just $3 short of 1,000, but that is quite incredible for me because it was something I set without even really realizing. Well, I had some idea that some of the life changes, like moving to a different apartment, lowering my costs. I felt intuitively that they would help, but I didn't have the actual numbers. But after I'm working with you, I have actual numbers. And so I can say that number, I can see where that money is coming from. We went through, and there were things that I was just paying for that they weren't nonsense, but they just weren't leading me to what I wanted. And I realized there were other ways I could take action on my dreams besides always putting out money first. There were free things I could do, and those were just as legitimate and as powerful and effective for me moving forward as spending the money. And so I feel more confident that I have the ability to look at what I'm taking in and not make those same decisions with my money, and start thinking first about what other actions can I take to move forward without always spending money. And right now I kind of the challenge for me is how much can I not spend? Each week I'm thinking, how much can I not spend? Not necessarily how much can I save, but just the opposite of that is how much can I not spend? Because yes, I have a savings account, but the mindset is what is really important to me versus just saving, um, and being intentional around what I use my money on. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I think I remember one of the things that you said like early on, like when we were going through some of the things that you kind of mentioned that they weren't there wasn't frivolous spending, but it definitely didn't reflect what your key goal was at that time. And then
Mm,
there were some items that we took some pause on, but there were some items you said, oh yeah, I can do without that. And I remember you saying something to the effect that, oh, it wasn't that bad, or this wasn't as hard as I thought. And I think it's really the power of being vulnerable, being supported, not feeling judged, and showing the screen. Share the screen, girl. You know what I mean? Where you can actually see how well you're doing and the areas that you can grow in, and
right.
take have those both be part of your story, right? Like you can appreciate the good and appreciate the next step and not feel shame about one or the other. It's just part of life. And
Right.
so that leads me to the question of like, what are you excited about, Dr. Iris? You know, now that you kind of have your life and money seems like in a predictable, um, planful, for lack of a better term, way. Like it seems like you're ahead of your money instead of you kind of chasing after trying to figure out where to go. So what are you excited about, especially now that we're at the end of this 8-week program?
Well, I'm excited because I feel that buying a house in New York City is possible.
Yay.
And I felt very overwhelmed about that
Mhm.
prior to this experience. And I am taking action on that. I'm meeting next week with a mortgage officer to start talking about what are the steps so I can be prepared in the next few months to put money down. I reconsolidated my debt so that I'm saving about $300 extra on the things that I do have to pay off. Um, I have a plan for how to pay them off after I get into my new home and I bring my housing costs even further, reduce them even further. And it feels stable. It feels like the
Right.
foreseeable future has some protective barriers put in place
Mhm.
because of my understanding, but also the way that I set up the money, and so I just don't feel pushed around by my desires or the fact that they do cost money, or the fact that it requires work. So it requires work, and most of the work I realize is more internal than it is external, and it's
Mhm.
very much about me and my fears or doubts, were the things that I've been working in, mindsets that I've been working in for so long that are being challenged. And so it's not really the external fear like going across the street. Um, my bank is across the street, so I'm really blessed for that. Just walk over there. I got the loan. That has its own, a little bit of trepidation associated with it because you want to get the loan, all these sorts of things. But it's really, what does it take for me to go across the street to say, I'm ready to consolidate my debt. I'm ready to try this new thing. I'm ready to come out of paying higher interest rates. Sure, I'm paying it off, but do I really need to pay that? Like, I can manage it, but can't. What's wrong with me saving money and not being complacent? So those are the things that that's the work, and but the work is worth it. Um, and because it just produces so much more security. So I'm really just excited about my dreams coming true, and I feel like that's really possible.
No, I love that for you. And what I can just say from the time that we started to the time that we came to an end is that I think you always respected yourself, and I think that you always had hope. But to have you see the numbers behind this is what I said I wanted to do, and then in a short 8 weeks be able to make it happen through work, not just through believing or wishing, but through actually doing the work. And then being able to balance both eliminating debt and saving, which a lot of people think that you can't do both. You have to do one or the other. And even during our time together, when you made home ownership your priority, we had to shift some of the things that we did to make the debt manageable, but also to make saving the priority, and which I commend you for as well. And so with that being said, one of the things that we realized towards the end was like, you're making good money. We have budgeted as much as we could budget, right? And then we
Yeah.
realized that we were sitting on a gold mine, meaning your mind. You are Dr. Iris, right? You have had personal experience and clinical experience with supporting yourself and just doing the research around um, conditions that affect women's health. And so, as a result of having gotten to the end of as far as you could with saving by budgeting, we've decided that, well, you decided that you are ready to earn more, right? So the debt free society isn't just about, playing the defense when it comes to wealth building, which means eliminating your debt. We're trying to build the assets, not just reduce the liabilities. And so tell us about this new business.
So that was definitely a surprise. I was not expecting to
Mhm,
end up there
mhm,
after the program or near the towards the end of the
mhm.
program. But it feels like a natural transition when I think about it now that we were able to come to that conclusion. And I restarted my practice, and I'll be doing it part time on the weekends because I do work a full time job. But it's exciting because I feel like I have it's interesting. The financial work and gaining the confidence there, it ends up spreading confidence in other areas of your life. And I feel more confident about starting my practice and restarting it, but more confident in it doing it the way that works for me versus the way that I had done it before, which was really based on a lot of external tips and trips about what works and all these other things. And I feel very more grounded in myself. And so I am returning to working with women and working with endometriosis and fibroids and um, PMS and just thinking again about that. But like I said, just feeling more confident that I can maneuver this ship because I've already done it in another area of my life. So I'm excited about that, excited about the opportunities that came from our connection, and just using those as a launching pad for getting out there and educating my community more. And so that's where I am
No,
with
I
the
love.
business.
I think that as your coach and um, what I noticed was that you began to center yourself in your finances in the sense of these are the things that I value, these are the things that are important to me. And then when it came to building a business, these are the people that I do want to work with. These are the people I do want to support. And this is also how I want to feel as a result of it. You didn't separate your needs, and you didn't use deprivation or scarcity or fear to govern the offer that you created, to govern the pricing that you're going to set, to identify the type of woman that you want to work with. And that you're talking about confidence, it kind of permeates the whole sphere of what you do for yourself and your personal finances. And limits not being horrible, limits making sense because they make sense for what your values are, and then moving it over to the business area of saying that I also have to be well. I also have to be taken care of, and then I can pour into my community just as much as I pour into myself. And I just want to commend you that one, it was always there, right? Two, to commend you for taking the action to see the potential and what you're actually capable of come together, closing that gap. And then just kind of, we're in 2026, just you be by the end of 2026 in your home and having started your business. And it's just up from here. So, with that being said, is there anything you want to tell anyone that could be possibly listening to this about smart women of color, Black women who may deal with emotional spending and are in debt, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say that when the opportunity comes to you to work with you, to work with the debt-free society, that they should take it. If they feel the pull for it, if they feel there's an interest, if they see themselves in any of your story, then it's meant for them to go forward on it and go as far as you can. Because I think that when you do want something, you will find a way to pay for it or to set the time aside for it. I work with you during work hours. I take my lunch break, and that's when I'm spending time is working with you. And so I think that it's possible, and the end result is that you get so much more out of it. What I'm saving now is more than what I paid. What I'm actually getting back in my paycheck, not because I made more money, not because I did anything crazy. I didn't take on 2 or 3 more jobs.
Mhm.
I just learned more about myself, and I learned about my power and the power of the money that I was making, and so that's really what brought the change, but it came from the relationship that we had.
Mhm.
And I realized that you can go very far. I am successful, but when you need to go to another level, you need the help, and there's nothing to be said about that. There's no other shortcomings, there's no other, excuse me, workarounds. You just need the help when you need the help, and when it comes to you is when you need to move forward. And um what I want to do in my life, I realized I could not have done it on my own. And my partner was asking me like, what did she do? And I was telling him, and I don't think he quite understood,
Mhm.
but he's not at that place. It's not for him, but people may not understand. But when you see the change, when you see the little numbers, when you see the money come in and I get paid and then I can set aside $1,000 in my savings account,
Right.
there's nothing about that that anyone can take away from me, and that I could not have done prior to meeting with you. Regardless of the fact that I got the six-figure job, it
Right.
did not matter that I was able to do that. I could not see the things that I needed to see because I didn't have the experience and the knowledge to do that. And I just what I recognize is that when you need to go forward, you need and to go to the next level and you want to go to the next level, you have to get the help. And when you know that you need the help, the opportunities will come. You will figure out how to pay for it. You will figure out how to put it in your time. You will figure out how to do the work on the off times, and you should go for it because on the other end, it's never ever going to be a waste. There's nothing that we have done that has been a waste of time, even if it's been a sacrifice from something else.
Mhm.
And so that to me is priceless. And everything that I've learned, no one could ever take from me. I will continue to use it over and over and over again. So that one-time investment is bringing me dividends beyond for much further than anything that I could ever think or imagine. And so I'm just really grateful for having done the work, and it's worth it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Iris. Like, you are not a paid actor, just to put it out there. No, this was really just, um, it just like I'm your coach, but I get so much just from seeing someone who I know and women who I know who are basically different versions of a story that I could tell about myself, and having
Mhm.
them not have having them get to the end of their life and have less regrets. That's really what I'm
Mhm.
really trying. I mean, that's basically what I'm out here peddling, is making sure that you do not die with your song inside of you, making sure that you walk a little bit straighter, you just feel good, and you get to determine, not even partner, not my husband, I get to say what's important to me. I determine that, and I use my resources to support the vision that, whether you call it God or the spirit or whatever, has for me. And I just want to commend you for being that courageous. And what I'll leave you guys with, I'll leave you a link to Iris's LinkedIn page. I'll leave a link to the article that she was featured in as well, so you can see the power of, you don't know what's out there for you until you actually walk the path. And then more information about the Debt Free Society and even the Stop the Emotional Spend Challenge, so you can see where it all started. So, Iris, any last words, any last things that you want to share with anyone before we close?
No, this was an amazing experience, and I'm really happy about having gone through it. My life has changed, and
Yeah.
uh, that's not flattery. It's just the truth, and I'm really, really happy about where I am right now.
Well, I'm happy for you, and thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your experience. And I know this is not the end for you or for us. So thank you so much.